Part 3, the rest of the books. Going back to what was happening earlier in Geralt's story, it's important to note that before he actually took Ciri on as his apprentice, the Empire of Nilfgaard's war against the North reached a tipping point. Ciri's home, Sintra, was invaded by Nilfgaard and burned to the ground, and Queen Calanthe committed suicide during the battle. Ciri lost her home and family to the Empire, which further led to Geralt becoming a father figure for her. In addition, the entire continent eventually became a mass of war between factions and borders. Sintra, which held an important geographical position from a military standpoint, as well as a political one, became the center of attention for both the northern monarchs and the Emperor of Nilfgaard himself. The northern realms and Nilfgaard realized that whoever held Sintra held the key to the continent. Furthermore, if they could win the hearts of Sintra, they could hold that monopoly without the instability of a hostile invasion. What they needed was an alliance by marriage, or the support of a true Sintran noble. So when rumors began to spread that the heir to Queen Calanthe's throne had survived and not been killed in the battle for Sintra as previously thought, Ciri drew the attention of every single political figurehead vying for power, and a race ensued. The Witcher novels from here follow Geralt and his allies while they try to track Ciri down and catch her before anyone else gets a hold of her. The number of different parties searching for her is staggering, and the hunt takes years. Over that time, we actually get to see Ciri grow from a young girl to an adult woman, who struggles with her identity as not only a strong, brash woman, but a trained witcher and a powerful political figure with the power to shape the entire continent as well. And if that's not enough, Ciri also learns that her bloodline, which gives her unparalleled magical abilities, holds the key to an unbelievable power prophesied to destroy the world. I won't go into detail about what these powers are or how the hunt for Ciri really ends, but know that in the process Ciri draws the attention of the Wild Hunt, and Geralt eventually finds her and wins the day. The entire journey comes to a happy end, but not for very long, as after, Geralt is staying in Rivia when a riot breaks out between humans and non-humans. The Witcher enters the fray to defend the non-humans and gets unceremoniously stabbed through the chest by an unremarkable human youth holding a pitchfork. Yennefer and Triss arrive to try to save Geralt's life, but in the end, Yennefer gives all her life force trying to heal him and is unsuccessful. Both of them appear to die. What happens next is open to interpretation. Ciri arrives out of nowhere and brings Geralt and Yennefer to a place called the Isle of Avallac'h, and then disappears. Geralt and Yennefer supposedly wake up here and live peacefully together alone. You can interpret this however you like, but from my perspective, I take this to mean Geralt and Yennefer did in fact both die, and the Isle of Avallac'h is something like limbo or heaven, where they were at peace in the afterlife. This is the final moment in Sapkowski's books. Part 4, The Witcher Games. The first game begins when the Witchers of Kaer Morhen find Geralt disoriented and near death wandering the woods. He's lost his memory and has no knowledge of where he's been. Everyone else in the world believed Geralt died in the riot in Rivia. While recovering back at Kaer Morhen, a sorceress appears at the castle and steals the secrets to the Witcher's mutations, the trial of grasses that causes Witchers to gain strength and stamina and live longer. His plan is to use these secrets to advance humanity in order to avoid the eventual destruction of the world as prophesied in an age-old prophecy. You may remember a world-ending prophecy was mentioned earlier, and I'll leave that to you. A lot happens in the first Witcher, but suffice it to say that Geralt begins to piece his memory together while hunting down the sorcerer and recovering the Witcher's secrets. He remembers being in contact with the Wild Hunt and somehow escaping their clutches and ending up back in the real world. Not everything comes back to him by the end of the game though, including Yennefer's whereabouts or how he ended up with the Wild Hunt in the first place. The game ends with Geralt defeating the sorcerer and potentially handing him up to the king of the Wild Hunt himself. The ethereal king promises Geralt this won't be their last meeting. And in the epilogue of the game, Geralt ends up at King Foltest's castle in Temeria, where after speaking with him and tying up loose ends, an assassin tries to take Foltest's life. Geralt prevents the killer from getting to Foltest, and the epilogue ends with a shot of the would-be killer's eyes, which are slitted vertically, just like a Witcher's. The Witcher 2 picks up immediately after the epilogue of the first game. After saving Foltest's life, the king has decided to keep Geralt around as a bodyguard and an advisor. Accompanied by Triss Merigold, Geralt goes along with it for a time, but eventually another assassin strikes at Foltest while under Geralt's watchful eye, and this time he succeeds. The enormous killer escapes, and Geralt gets framed for the murder. This time around, while Geralt's memory continues to return, he's trying to clear his name, and the Assassin of Kings turns out to be a Witcher named Letho. There's a whole lot of political influence and vying for power that goes on in the game and behind the scenes, but at its most simplest, Letho was hired by the Emperor of Nilfgaard to cause confusion and chaos among the northern kingdoms in order to make it easier for him to conquer the entire place as he marched north. Letho agreed in exchange for the restoration of his own Witcher school, the School of the Viper located in the south. Letho manages to kill 3 northern kings, including Foltest, by the end of this mission before being confronted by Geralt, who can choose at this stage whether or not to kill the Kingslayer. Before he makes his decision, though, Letho brings Geralt's past back to light and explains all the gaps from his memory. Back at the end of the last book, Geralt and Yennefer were peacefully left alone at the Isle of Avallac'h, but eventually the Wild Hunt arrived and stole Yennefer from Geralt. Enraged, Geralt pursued the hunt everywhere they went. On the way, he ran into Letho, a fellow Witcher on the path who had been nearly killed by a monster. After healing up, Letho and some other Witchers help Geralt find the hunt, where Geralt exchanges his own life for Yennefer's. Letho then took her in and kept her safe, while Geralt actually joined the ranks of the Wild Hunt for a time. The only thing that Geralt still does not remember at the end of Witcher 2 is how he escaped the Wild Hunt cavalcade. But going into Witcher 3, here's what we know. Geralt has all of his memory back. Yennefer is alive and somewhere in the world, and Ciri has returned from wherever she disappeared to at the end of the books, and once again, the entire world and the Wild Hunt want her for themselves. I expect each of these things will be very important in Witcher 3, and my assumption is that the story will revolve around what happened to Ciri after she left Yennefer and Geralt back at the Isle of Avallac'h. My guess is that after leaving Avallac'h, Ciri disappeared again and was being closely followed by the Wild Hunt. Obviously, they eventually caught up, and Ciri either fought them or narrowly escaped having to do so. One way or another, she's shown up again on the map with the hunt hot on her heels and reopened a whole can of worms for the people in the northern kingdoms. One of the reasons I'm so excited for this chapter is that everything feels so much more intimate from a plot perspective, even though the world and the gameplay is even more open than ever before. I actually care about Geralt's motivations here. In the last 2 games, it was refreshing to play a character who wasn't a chosen hero destined to save the world. Now it's even more compelling to play a protagonist who has even simpler ambitions, to protect his family. Thanks for watching, guys. This is the first YouTube video I've ever put together from start to finish, so I apologize for the quality. If I missed anything or got anything wrong, let me know, and if you like this video and want to see more videos like this, give me suggestions on areas of The Witcher you'd like to hear about. In the meantime, happy hunting.